Another thing is that he said that, well, it doesn't make scientific sense. I'm going to explain that later. As for the whole accusation that, it says that it prostrates, it doesn't mean it's literally prostrating. It just means that it is doing what it's supposed to be doing. That's it. So yeah. Now let's take a look at his comments. So yeah, let's take a look. He said that slippery slope fallacy is misused, which he's not entirely wrong here, because I did kind of misuse it, because if you look at the academic definition, it is it's a bit different. However, I'm still right in calling out a fallacy, because he did commit a fallacy, because there's a logical jump between Dhul-Qarnayn going from east to west to that means that the earth is flat, or the fact that he found some people who had no shade against the sun, that means that the sun is closer to earth, and there's no logical jump there, and he has to basically prove and show logical conclusion and logical progression that there's a jump, but he didn't, which is why this is a fallacy. Then he said, I hope you follow Sufism. Then mainstream Sunni Islam, apparently the ulama are ambiguous, that there are parable and allegories in the Quran, but there's nothing, it's a weird letter verse that cannot be understood by anyone. That is not true. That is a flat out lie. I'll post a link in the description which will show that the scholars pretty much unanimously agreed that yes, there are ambiguous verses in the Quran. And also the link that he posted actually refutes it. I don't think he probably didn't even read it, because I went to the link myself. And it's interesting. It's basically what the article says is that basically they confirm what I've been saying. They said that there are two types of ambiguous verses. One is martal, and the other one is mustaba. The martal verses are basically like metaphors and stuff like that, and mustaba are verses that are ambiguous, but we shouldn't pursue them. That's all it says. They basically make a distinction between the two ambiguous verses. So this actually proves my point. So I don't know, did he even read this? Interesting. Anyway, and he said that I ignored tafsir. I didn't ignore it. I take a look at it, and it just proves my point. I don't know why. Did he not read this? I don't think he read this. Anyway, he said, and then he's saying that alternative hadiths makes no sense. They don't make any scientific sense. And this is an interesting point. Basically, here he's confusing science with scientism. What gave him the idea that the verses or the hadiths have to be scientifically accurate? Did Allah ever said in the Quran that this is a book of science? Did the Prophet ever declared that he's a scientist? He's a scientist of God? Did he ever said any of those things? No? Then why are we assuming they have to go along with science? As I proved already, and the article he provided shows that there are ambiguous verses in the Quran. He's trying to show that there's only two options, that everything that's based on science is true, and everything that's not based on science is false. This is scientism. But the problem is that belief in scientism, that everything has to be based on science, that belief itself cannot be proven by science. And that's a problem. Also, science also has this thing called problem of induction. If you study philosophy of science, you'll understand this. And also, by the way, this is actually not problematic. This is actually quite dangerous, because basically he's misusing science. Because no scientist would ever understand science to be like this. They will never say that science is objectively true. Science is, it's a method that's continuously changing. It's never the same. For example, a few years ago, scientists have said that the universe was static, but now they say the universe is expanding. So now, from sitting from here, what the scientists said was wrong. So how do you know they won't be wrong in the future again? So again, this is the whole philosophy of science. You cannot say that science is always objectively true. So just because if something doesn't go along with science doesn't mean it's false. It just means it doesn't go along. And maybe the thing is that Islam is a set of belief, and science is a set of system that basically tries to explain the natural phenomena. The two are completely different things, completely different ideas. So why would you mix the two? It's fallacious reasoning, because it's faulty comparison. So yeah, I'm gonna make a separate video about this. It's a very interesting topic. But yeah, and so basically, and also like I explained, there's a problem of induction in science. Basically, for example, let's say you go outside and you see that there are a bunch of black sheep in the road, and you think to yourself, you know what, all the sheep in the world are black. But the problem is that that's not true. because it could be that there's somewhere on the earth that some ships are white. You know, I mean, just because you've only seen black sheep doesn't mean all ships are black. And this is the problem with when you try to understand science as objectively true, because just because you've never seen a white sheep doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The same way, that's because it says that we can see that there are 7 heavens or whatever, you know, doesn't mean it's not there. It just means we haven't seen it. So again, it doesn't prove his point in any way. This is actually scientism. It's not science. You know, because in science, you're actually supposed to question science. You're supposed to, you know, challenge it. The problem is, you know, if we take science as objectively true, that can't happen. So this is why this belief in scientism is dangerous, and this is something that's been propagated by the new atheists and Islamophobes often. So again, this is dangerous because we should be careful, because in academic level, scientists don't understand science to be like this. You know, basically they think that science is oftentimes it's changeable, it's constantly changing. So you cannot take it as objectively true. I mean, of course, you can take it as a working theory, as a working model, as a fact. I mean, the fact doesn't change. For example, there is a thing called gravity, which don't know what that thing is. There are many hypotheses and theories around it, but we don't know why we're being pulled down. The current theory is that it's because of the curvature of space. Before it was something else, and it could be that in the near future, this theory could be proven false. So again, this is why you shouldn't take science as something objectively true. Also, like if you look at quantum mechanics, it's completely different to how we understand our physical universe. So again, this is why it is dangerous to think that science is objectively true. Same way it's dangerous to think that Islam can only be understood literally, you know. And also, it's dangerous to compare the two. You know, they're two completely separate things. Anyway, so basically this is his argument, and as you can see, he made no logical refutations to my arguments. Basically, just him throwing nonsense and repeating what he said. And so yeah, that's about it. So I'll probably see you guys in the next video. By the way, Apostate Prophet, if you're butthurt, don't worry. You know, listen, take advice from your ex-Muslim friend. Mimi Vids, as she said.
Take things on the chin a little bit more, bit too sensitive, you know.
Exactly.